Hi VC, I know I haven't done a record update in a really long time, so I'm finally doing a classical update of a lot of classical records I've collected over the past 6 months and before. This is basically stuff that I've collected since the summer and haven't shown yet in a video because they've been here in Austin. So I'm just gonna get right to it, I'm gonna try really hard not to spend too much time talking about the individual records because there's a lot to get through. I've been collecting mostly classical music these past couple months. This is a Lois Lyer pressing of Shostakovich String Quartets number 4 and 12 with the Fritz William String Quartet. Most people say that the best recordings of Shostakovich quartets are either the Borden Quartet or the Fritz William Quartet. These guys. And Lois Lyer is, of course, pressed by Decca in England, so very good sound quality. This is a Speaker's Corner Decca reissue of Gamba. I think his first name's Pierno Gamba, conducting Rossini overtures. Lots of good stuff on here. Scala di Seta, which is standard for us. Barber of Seville, William Tell. This is probably the best Rossini overtures album I've ever heard. This is an old Cisco reissue of Heifetz and Piotgorsky playing the Brahms Double Concerto for violin and cello. This is a Cisco reissue of an original RCA living stereo. Heifetz, can't go wrong. Got some Deutsche Grammophones here. We got Boston Symphony, Seiji Ozawa conducting Ravel's Tombeau de Couperin and Mother Goose Suite. Tombeau de Couperin is like bread and butter music for us. So. Another Deutsche Grammophon. This is Karajan in Berlin doing Don Juan and Till Eulenspiegel. And a couple dances from Salome, actually. But I mostly just bought this for Don Juan. This is another original Deutsche Grammophon. These past couple have all been 70s Deutsche Grammophon pressings, so not the original tulips, but still good pressings. Because these were recorded in the 70s. This is Strauss, Death and Transfiguration, and Four Last Songs. I don't know who the vocalist is on here. Janowitz, not a soprano I'm familiar with, but I haven't listened to this yet, but I'm sure the performance will be incredible. I've heard other recordings Karajan's done of Death and Transfiguration, and they've been good. We got a London Decca British pressed recording of also Sprach Zarathustra with Zubin Mehta and Los Angeles Phil. This one's come highly recommended. I've been waiting for a while to find a clean copy of that, and I just never come across one until now. This is Colin Davis conducting the London Symphony on Phillips doing Berlioz overtures. I've been meaning to listen to more Berlioz. I haven't been listening to much Berlioz besides, Symphony Fantastique, which we've all heard 8 million times. This is Analog Productions pressing. Analog Productions Acoustic Sounds recently had a really big sale on Analog Productions records, so I took advantage of that and got a bunch of stuff that I've been meaning to get for a long time. This is one of them. This is Rachmaninoff's Symphonic Dances with the Dallas Symphony. Double 45 pressing, sounds incredible, and Rachmaninoff's Symphonic Dances are a piece I have a couple different recordings of, and I really enjoy it. And I've seen, I didn't get to play in this particular concert, but in my undergrad, my school's orchestra played the Symphonic Dances in Carnegie Hall, and that was really awesome to listen to. This one's a pretty rare recording. This is Ikuyo Kamiya. I hope I pronounced that right. Ikuyo Kamiya, no J there. Ikuyo Kamiya playing the Beethoven Appassionata Sonata, one of Beethoven's more famous piano sonatas. This is a great sounding recording. This was recorded direct to disc. So it was. I'm assuming most of you guys know what direct to disc means, but basically it means while she was playing, while they were recording, instead of recording it to master tape, instead of recording it to tape, and then mastering the tape, and then using that master tape to cut a lathe. In a direct-to-disc recording, they were recording directly onto the lathe. So it eliminates a ton of steps, and it's much, much better sound. The downside of that is it's really hard to do, and it's nerve-wracking because you have one chance to get it right. So not a lot has been recorded direct-to-disc, but this is a pretty famous one. RCA Japan actually did it. It's crazy that RCA would do a direct-to-disc recording. But this is probably one of the best-sounding piano records I've ever heard. We got a double 45 ORG London Decca reissue up next. This is Holst, Zubin Mehta, Los Angeles Phil playing the Planets. These double 45s by ORG of the London Decca catalog. They've only done a couple of them, but they're incredible. Pick them up if you can. We got a really old Analog Productions reissue here of Copland conducting his piano concerto and also the Menotti piano concerto. This is an Analog Productions reissue of what I believe was originally a Vanguard recording. They did this really early on in their history, in Analog Productions history, so it's one of their older releases. This is the latest in the RCA Living Stereo series. This is that Analog Productions have been doing. This is Witch's Brew. This is a pretty famous record, and the original of it sells for many, many hundreds of dollars. So it's cool that Analog Productions are reissuing these really rare Living Stereo recordings. Up next, we got some original Living Stereos. We got two really awesome original Living Stereos. We got Robert Shaw conducting two Bach cantatas, number 56 and number 82. 82 is, of course, the famous Ich habe genug, and number 56 is Ich will den Kreuzstab Jean tragen, which means I will carry the cross with gladness. Both of these are oboe, are cantatas that have oboe obbligato. And the reason I bought this record is Mark Lifshee is playing oboe on both these cantatas, and he's a really incredible oboist. He was the principal oboist of the Cleveland Orchestra under George Zell for a long time, and then later he went on to be the principal oboist of the San Francisco Symphony. And I really love his oboe playing, and even though this recording is a little bit dated in terms of playing in Bach's style, it's his playing on it is enough to justify it for me. I really love his playing of the obbligato parts on this. It's original Shaded Dog, in surprisingly good condition. Along with this next one, which is also an original Shaded Dog, this is the Juilliard String Quartet playing Debussy and Ravel quartets. This is a really great recording. Even if you can't get this in vinyl form, get it on CD or something. It's a really great recording. Next, we have an original Columbia 6i pressing of the second Brahms Piano Concerto with Rudolf Serkin and the Philadelphia Orchestra. We got one of my favorite conductors here. This is Leopold Stokowski conducting excerpts from Wagner operas. Symphony of the Air, which is just a pickup orchestra, but it's comprised of pretty good players, I would imagine. And again, this is an original Shaded Dog pressing Living Stereo. We got the Brahms Piano Quintet in G minor, Piano Quartet in G minor with Emile Gilles playing piano. I recently just played the Schoenberg orchestral transcription of this piece, which is hard as hell. Man, that piece was hard. We got the original. We got a 60s tulip pressing of the Beethoven's Fourth Symphony with the Berlin Phil and von Karajan. This is the first Beethoven cycle that Karajan did with Berlin Phil. He did three, one in the 60s, one in the 70s, and one in the 80s during the digital age. Most people think the first cycle is the best. I tend to agree. We got more Karajan here. Berlin Phil doing different tone poems by Sibelius, Finlandia, and the Swanattanella specifically. The Swanattanella is one of my favorite pieces. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful piece. I got a King Super Analog pressing of a Decca recording here. If you're familiar with the channel, you've heard me talk about these King Super Analog pressings before. They're from the 90s. They were Japanese reissues from the original master tape of Decca recordings. This is Mozart Symphony No. 35 and Schubert Symphony No. 8 unfinished. I don't listen to enough orchestral Mozart music. I listen to a lot of his operas. I don't listen to a lot of his symphonies. So I need to do that. Excuse the voice and the sniffles, guys. I'm got a nasty cold right now. So my voice has gone from like Jim Morrison to like a wounded Isaac Hayes, and it's all like gross and raspy right now. This is a composer that is very, very, very underappreciated. This is an original Decca pressing of Albrecht Magnard. Albrecht Magnard's Third Symphony, played by Orchestra Suisse Romand, conducted by Ernst Ansermet. There's really only like 2 or 3 recordings of Munyard's symphonies available. I'm pretty sure this is the only third symphony you can actually buy on vinyl. He was a really underappreciated composer. People call him the French Bruckner because his music is undeniably French and there's impressionistic qualities in it. He studied with Franck, I think. But there's grandiose elements of German music in there. He does imitate Brahms and Bruckner a little bit. Great composer. This is a cool recording. This is an original Decca wideband pressing of the Mozart Requiem conducted by Cortez and the Vienna Phil. I have nothing but good things to say about this recording. I listened to it and it was so enthralling. Probably the best Requiem recording I've ever heard of Mozart's Requiem. Next, we got 2 more Analog Productions reissues. These are both from their new Wilson Audiophile series they were doing. Wilson Audiophile was a label in the 80s and 90s that did specific audiophile recordings, small-scale stuff usually. And they did two records of violin and piano music. And so they reissued these 2 records. These are both with Julie Steinberg and David Abel, respectively, on piano and violin. And this is my favorite of the 2 because this has the Debussy violin sonata on it, and it also has the Brahms first violin sonata on it. These sound really incredible. These are great ways to kind of test your system. Not to say they are hi-fi show records. It's beautiful music played very well. Here we got the other Wilson Audiophile record. This is the Beethoven Sonata in G minor, and the one I like better is the Enescu Sonata No. 3. Enescu is another underrated composer, I think. Here we got a 70s Deutsche Grammophon recording of Karajan and the Berlin Phil doing a double bill of Bach's Magnificat and Igor Stravinsky's Symphony of Psalms. The Symphony of Psalms is, of course, outstanding. The Magnificat is pretty good. It's not really a authentic Bach performance, but it's a lot better than Karajan's 50s Bach recordings that were very slow and very boring. This one's a little lighter, a little more interesting. Here we got some Speaker's Corner reissues, mostly from the Decca catalog. We got a Speaker's Corner reissue of Orchestre Suisse Romand, Ernst Ansermet, noting 2 interesting pieces that aren't really programmed much anymore. The Albanese Iberia and the Turina Dances Fantasticas. That piece, the Dances Fantasticas, takes me back because the last time I heard or played that was in high school orchestra. So that was a trip down memory lane. Here we got a Speaker's Corner Decca reissue of George Zell conducting Handel's Water Music and Music for the Royal Fireworks. It's doing Baroque music normally with a big orchestra like the London Symphony is not a good thing, but because the Water Music and Royal Fireworks suites were both performed outside in Handel's time, they were performed with larger orchestras, so you can actually get away with playing these pieces with big orchestras. As for the interpretation, it's a 1960s interpretation, but I really like George Zell's conducting. I like the results he gets, and this is a nice collection of music to listen to. It's not really historically authentic, but it's musically a good performance, and I think that's what matters. This is another Decca Speaker's Corner. This is Rostropovich playing a recital of Britten, Schumann, and Debussy. It's Rostropovich. He was one of the greatest cellists of the 20th century. I especially like this piece for the Debussy on it. I especially like this record for the Debussy. The Debussy. I've been listening to a ton of Debussy lately. It's been my composer of the last couple months. All right, last record. We got another Speaker's Corner. This time it's a Columbia reissue by Speaker's Corner. This is Eugene Ormandy conducting what are basically different versions of the Philadelphia Orchestra, playing the 2 Mendelssohn piano concertos with the soloist Rudolf Serkin. This is cool. I hope that Speaker's Corner does more Columbia reissues, because I'd like to see performances by the New York Phil and the Philadelphia Orchestra get the audiophile treatment that all these European orchestras have been enjoying for a long time now. And that's it. That was a lot of records to get through. Thanks for bearing with me, VC. That was a all the classical music I've bought in the last... Some of this was bought back in like August. I just hadn't had time to sit down and go through it with you guys. But yeah, so I haven't listened to all of it yet. I've listened to most of it. But yeah, tell me if you recognize any of these recordings. If you think you know recordings that are better than some of the ones I brought up, tell me about it. That's what comment sections are for. I'm going to try really, really hard to do this guide to classical music record collecting that I've been talking about recently. I'm going to try to do this rundown tomorrow or maybe the next day. So we'll see. I'm going to try to do it. It's going to take a while and it's going to take some planning. But I've been promising you it for a while. So pinky promise, it will be done before New Year's. I will get this to you before New Year's. Hopefully. Maybe. I'm going to try. Thanks, VC.